I forgot to invite my cousin to my engagement party because she's prettier than me. I, 23F, have been engaged to my fiance, 29M, for a little over 2 months now, and it should be one of the happiest times of my life. It was until I did something that has me lying awake at night, staring at the ceiling, replaying every decision that led to it. I know the internet loves to eat people alive for petty behavior, and I'll admit it right here. What I did was petty. But when I explain, maybe you'll see why my brain told me it was self-preservation at the time. Enter my cousin Clara, 26F. Clara has been the pretty one in our family since the moment she was born. I'm not saying that to be dramatic. It's practically a family fact. She has the kind of beauty people notice immediately. Symmetrical face, those big doe eyes, the shiny hair, and of course, the metabolism of a Disney princess. It's not just her looks, though. She's effortlessly charming. Waiters remember her. My friends remember her. Even strangers at gas stations remember her. Me, I'm fine. I'm not hideous. I've been told I have a cute smile and kind eyes, which, if you've ever been compared to a walking Instagram filter, feels like being told you have a great personality on a dating app. I've lived my whole life in Clara's shadow, even when she wasn't around. Family gatherings would inevitably involve someone sighing, "Clara looks just like a model," or "she could be in Hollywood," while I stood there holding a plate of potato salad like an unpaid extra in my own life. For years, I've swallowed it. I've smiled through bridal showers, hers, graduation parties, hers, even a family cruise where she somehow got invited to my birthday dinner because it would be more fun with her there. So when my fiance proposed, after 2 years of dating, after I finally felt like I had something that was mine, the first thing I felt was joy. The second thing was a flicker of dread, because I knew what would happen when Clara was in the same room as me, in my white dress, with my family around. I wish I could tell you I rose above it, that I decided love was enough to make me feel secure. But instead, well, I made sure she didn't get an invitation to my engagement party. And no, it wasn't an oversight. It was deliberate. Clara and I grew up in the same small town, just 5 streets apart. Our mothers are sisters, which meant family gatherings were basically mandatory. Birthdays, Easter egg hunts, Christmas mornings where both families would pile into my grandmother's living room and tear through wrapping paper like caffeinated raccoons. From as early as I can remember, the Clara effect was in full swing. She was the kind of baby people stopped to coo at in grocery stores. Our aunts would fight over who got to hold her. I have a vivid memory of being 4 years old, standing in a frilly pink dress next to toddler Clara at a family barbecue, and some distant relative patting me on the head before turning to my mom and whispering, "Wow, your niece is stunning." I didn't know what stunning meant at the time, but I understood the tone. It never stopped. By the time we were in elementary school, teachers would ask me, "Are you related to Clara?" and then follow it with a soft, surprised, "Oh," like they were trying to hide disappointment. I was the quieter kid, glasses, a bit awkward, the kind who got straight A's but couldn't figure out how to French braid her hair without creating a tangled disaster. Clara was the one who made friends instantly, got picked first in gym, and was already getting love notes by 4th grade. At family events, the comparisons were constant. "Clara has the most gorgeous hair. It just shines." "You're smart, though. Brains over beauty, right?" "When you two stand together, it's like a before and after picture." That one still stings. It wasn't just beauty. Clara seemed to float through life with a kind of effortless grace. She got lead roles in school plays, had a squad of friends who looked like they'd stepped out of an Abercrombie catalog, and somehow managed to be nice through all of it, which made it even harder to resent her without feeling like a villain. So when we hit our teens, the gap widened. Clara blossomed into this tall, elegant, Instagram-ready young woman while I was still figuring out eyeliner. At my 16th birthday party, the guy I had a crush on spent most of the night talking to her. By the end of the evening, he'd gotten her number. She didn't even do it on purpose. She thought she was just being friendly. Over the years, I built up this quiet, festering cocktail of admiration and bitterness. I loved her, genuinely, in the way you love family. But every time we were in the same space, I felt like the supporting character in the Clara show. And the worst part, my family never noticed how it made me feel. Or maybe they did and just thought I was being sensitive. So when I got engaged, those old memories weren't just in the background, they came rushing forward like an uninvited guest. By the time I hit my early 20s, I had made peace, or at least I thought I had, with being the other cousin. I moved out of our hometown, went to college, and started carving out a life that felt separate from Clara's orbit. I landed a stable job in marketing, found a cozy apartment, made my own circle of friends who didn't know or care that I wasn't the pretty one. For the first time, I felt like I was living in my own narrative instead of being a footnote in hers. Clara, meanwhile, had gone full social media butterfly. She became a lifestyle influencer, nothing huge, but enough to get invited to brand events, post perfect pictures, sipping cocktails on rooftops, and rack up comments from men calling her goddess and wife material. Every family gathering meant a new batch of professional-looking photos from her adventures. I'd scroll through them with a mix of admiration and that sharp little ache of jealousy I thought I'd outgrown. Then I met Daniel, 29M. We met through a mutual friend at a trivia night, and for once, I was the one who got noticed first. He laughed at my sarcastic comments, told me he loved how I commanded the room. Me, commanding a room? I almost asked if he was sure he had the right person. 2 years later, he proposed. Nothing flashy, just us at our favorite park, a picnic blanket, and the most beautiful ring I could have imagined. I was ecstatic. I called my mom, I called my best friend, I called everyone. Except Clara. It wasn't intentional at first. I figured I'd tell her when I told the rest of the extended family. But before I could, my aunt posted a photo of Daniel and me on Facebook with the caption, "She said yes." Within hours, Clara had commented, "Oh my God, congrats you two! You're adorable! Can't wait to celebrate you!" That's when the pit formed in my stomach. The next weekend, at a family brunch, one of my uncles leaned across the table and grinned at me. "Bet you're glad Clara's single, huh? Don't want her stealing the spotlight on your big day." He laughed, like it was harmless. My mom chuckled awkwardly. I smiled. But inside, I was boiling. Because it wasn't just a joke. People had been making those kinds of comments my whole life. I started imagining the engagement party we were planning, the first big event leading up to the wedding. I pictured Daniel's friends meeting Clara for the first time, hearing her laugh, seeing her in some perfect little dress, and wondering why she wasn't the one getting married. That thought lodged itself in my brain and refused to leave. When Daniel and I got engaged, I wanted to shout it from the rooftops. And honestly, I sort of did. Between my mom's Facebook post, my own Instagram story, and the dozen phone calls I made in the first 24 hours, everyone knew. The outpouring of love was overwhelming in the best way. Friends sent flowers, my coworkers surprised me with cupcakes. Even my landlord slipped a congratulations card under my door. And from the family side, well, it was the usual mix. Most people were genuinely happy for me. A few couldn't resist making it about themselves, like, "About time you settled down," or "We were starting to worry you'd end up a cat lady." Thanks, Aunt Denise. And then there were the comments that landed like little pebbles in my shoe. Not immediately painful, but irritating enough to keep me limping. The first came from my grandmother on the phone. I can't wait to see you and Clara standing together at your wedding. Two beautiful young women. Well, one gorgeous and one radiant with happiness. I know she meant that as a compliment, I do. But I also know the code. Radiant with happiness is what you say to the person who doesn't look like a model. The second came at a Sunday lunch with my parents. My mom, completely casually, said, "Maybe Clara could be a bridesmaid. She'd look lovely in those dusty rose dresses you pinned." Lovely. She'd look lovely. My brain immediately twisted it into, she'd look lovelier than you. I laughed it off and said we hadn't decided on bridesmaids yet. In my head, though, a quiet but insistent voice whispered, "You don't have to let this happen. You can control this." When Daniel and I sat down to plan the engagement party, I kept telling myself it would be intimate, just close friends and immediate family, something low pressure, so I could actually enjoy it without worrying about perfect photos or people comparing me to my human magazine cover cousin. We opened a shared spreadsheet for the guest list. Daniel added his parents, his siblings, a few college friends, some work buddies. I added my parents, my brother, a couple of my closest girlfriends. I hesitated when it came to the extended family section. Daniel glanced at my laptop. "What about your aunts and uncles?" "Yeah, some of them. But I think I'll keep it really small. Less drama." I scrolled past Clara's name. Not an accident. My hand physically hovered over the keyboard, my stomach tightening. I told myself it was because she'd be busy. She's always traveling for work, posting from beach resorts and wine tastings. She might not even want to come. But the truth was much pettier, and I knew it. I closed the spreadsheet and told myself I'll deal with it later. Spoiler, I didn't. The thing about lying, even to yourself, is that it starts small. A half-truth here, an omission there, and before you know it, you've constructed a whole alternate reality where you're not the bad guy. That's exactly what I did with Clara's invitation. When Daniel asked again a week later, "Are you sure you're not forgetting anyone from your side?" I smiled and said, "Nope, I've got it all covered." Covered as in, I'd covered my own insecurity with a neat, airtight excuse.
I told myself she probably had a brand event that weekend anyway. She'd RSVP no, and I'd feel silly for even sending an invite. I told myself she wouldn't care. She had way more glamorous parties to attend. Mine would barely register. And honestly, I felt relieved. We set up a group chat for the engagement party. Just me, Daniel, my best friends, my brother, his girlfriend, Daniel's sister, a couple of mutuals. I made a Facebook event for the relatives we were inviting. No Clara in either. 2 days later, my mom called. "Did you send Clara the details? She asked me if she needed to book a hotel or if she could stay with us." I froze. My brain scrambled for something believable. "Oh, I haven't finalized the list yet. We're keeping it small, just immediate family and some friends. I'll probably see her at the wedding." Mom paused for a second. "Oh, okay. Well, I guess that makes sense." Her tone didn't sound convinced, but she didn't push. The closer we got to the party, the lighter I felt. I didn't have to think about standing next to her in photos or overhearing whispers about how stunning she looked. I could just be the bride-to-be for one night. Of course, that lightness had a shadow. Every now and then, the guilt would creep in. I'd remember Christmas 2 years ago when Clara showed up to my apartment with a homemade candle and a bottle of wine, just because she thought I could use some cozy vibes. Or the time she defended me when our uncle made a crack about me being too picky in dating. She wasn't mean. She wasn't the enemy. She was just Clara. But the self-preservation instinct was louder than the guilt, louder than reason. When people asked in passing, "Is Clara coming?" I'd shrug and say, "Oh, she's busy with work, I think." Saying it enough times almost made it feel true. And then the day of the party arrived.
The night of the engagement party felt like stepping into a warm bubble of joy. We'd rented out the back patio of a cozy wine bar strung with fairy lights, the kind of place that makes even cheap sparkling wine feel fancy. There were little gold love confetti pieces scattered on the tables, a playlist of our favorite songs humming in the background, and trays of bite-sized desserts making the rounds. For the first hour, I was floating. People were hugging me, telling me I looked beautiful, not radiant with happiness, just beautiful, small victory, and gushing over Daniel. My best friend made a toast that had everyone laughing and tearing up. For once, I wasn't glancing over my shoulder, wondering if someone else was stealing the spotlight. Halfway through the night, I was standing by the dessert table with Daniel when my phone buzzed. I ignored it at first. I decided I wasn't going to be glued to my phone tonight. But then it buzzed again and again, in that insistent way that means something's up. I finally pulled it out of my clutch. 2 unread texts from Clara. "Hey, I just saw on Instagram you're having an engagement party tonight. I didn't know there was one. Did my invite get lost?" My stomach dropped so hard I actually grabbed the edge of the table. I could feel my face flush hot, like I'd been caught doing something shameful. Because I had. Apparently, one of Daniel's friends had already posted a boomerang of us clinking champagne glasses tagged #engaged, and someone in my family must have reposted it. Social media, my old friend of me. I didn't reply right away. I just locked my phone and shoved it back into my bag, forcing a smile when Daniel asked if everything was okay. Yeah, just, nothing important. But I couldn't unsee the messages. The warmth I had been feeling all night started to cool into a heavy pit in my chest. I spent the rest of the evening sipping wine too quickly, laughing a little too loudly, pretending the text didn't exist. Later, when we were saying our goodbyes and guests were grabbing their coats, my phone buzzed again. "Clara, look, if you didn't want me there, you could have just said so. I'm not mad, I thought we were closer than that." That one hurt more than I expected. Not because it was confrontational, it wasn't, but because it was quiet, direct, no performance, no family audience, just disappointment in its raw form. And in that moment, I knew the fallout wasn't going to stay between us. The morning after the party, I woke up with a dull headache. Part cheap Prosecco, part anxiety hangover. Daniel was still asleep, looking so blissfully unaware that for a second I almost convinced myself I could just not deal with it, pretend Clara's text had never happened. But when I picked up my phone, the first thing I saw was a notification from the family group chat. My stomach did that sinking thing again. Clara had posted, "Congrats again to me and Daniel. Wish I'd been able to celebrate with you last night if I'd known there was something to celebrate." Cue the flood of confused and nosy responses. "Wait, you weren't there, Aunt Lisa? I thought you were out of town, Uncle Rob." "This is awkward, my brother. Thanks for that."
I typed and deleted about a dozen replies before I finally settled on, "We kept it small, just immediate family and close friends." Sorry if that wasn't clear. I thought that would be the end of it, but of course it wasn't. My mom called less than 5 minutes later, voice tight. "You should have told me you weren't inviting Clara. I had no idea, and now I look like an idiot for telling her she might stay with us." "I didn't mean to make you look bad," I said, pacing the kitchen. "I just wanted to avoid drama." "Drama?" Mom sighed. "Honey, you've made more drama." By lunchtime, Daniel had caught wind of it. He came into the living room holding his phone. "Why is your cousin posting about being left out?" I froze. "She's blowing it out of proportion." "She's your cousin," he said slowly, like he was working through a math problem in his head. "And from what I've seen, you two seem close. So why wasn't she invited?" I hated the way he asked it. calm, but with this undercurrent of, there's a piece of the puzzle missing and I know you have it. I told you, I said, forcing a shrug. We kept it small. He didn't buy it. I could see it in the way his jaw shifted slightly, like he was chewing over whether to push me on it. But in the end, he just nodded and let it drop. The group chat, however, did not drop it. Aunt Lisa outright asked, "Was there a falling out?" My brother, ever the instigator, replied with a popcorn emoji. Clara herself stayed quiet after her initial post, which somehow made me feel worse than if she'd gone nuclear. That night, lying in bed next to Daniel, I stared at the ceiling and thought about how one decision, a single name left off a guest list, had blown up into this tangled mess. And the worst part? I still wasn't sure I regretted it. It's been 2 weeks since the party, and the ripples are still spreading. The group chat has gone mostly silent, which in my family is a bad sign. My mom's been too busy to talk for more than a minute or two at a time. Daniel hasn't brought up Clara again, but I can feel the question hanging in the air between us, like a faint smell you can't quite get rid of. And me? I keep replaying it all. I think about that moment at the dessert table when I saw her texts, how my first instinct wasn't to apologize, but to hide. I think about the dozens of times Clara has shown up for me over the years, even when she could have been doing something flashier, more exciting. I think about the fact that she's never actually done anything malicious to me, but her very existence in my orbit has always felt like a threat to my self-worth. I hate admitting this, but here it is. On the night of my engagement party, I felt free, untouched by comparison. The compliments I got were mine alone. I didn't have to share them or wonder who people were really talking about when they said, "You look beautiful." And yet, that freedom came at the cost of hurting someone I care about. Someone who, despite all my insecurities, has never tried to make me feel small. So, was it worth it? Part of me still whispers yes. That little selfish voice says I deserved one night without computing. But another part, the part that's been keeping me up at night, knows that I didn't just forget her. I excluded her. On purpose. Because I was afraid. I keep wondering, if the roles were reversed, would she have done the same? I want to say no. Clara probably would have invited me, smiled through any jealousy, and let me have my moment. And maybe that's what makes this worse. I don't know if I should reach out to her now or wait for things to cool down. I don't know if she'd even want to hear from me. And I really don't know if what I did can be justified as protecting my happiness or if it was just cruelty dressed up as self-care. So, I'm asking you, strangers on the internet, people who don't know me, who won't sugarcoat it, am I overreacting to my own guilt? Or was I truly out of line? Was this just a petty, jealous move that I need to own? Or was I allowed just this once to put myself first